And it's a mixed picture that is coming up from the Asian markets. The Taiwanese index is trading with very healthy gains of over 1%.
TCS reports a margin miss in the current quarter. EBIT margins at 24.1% falls short of street expectations.
The downside, the low from 2 days back, I think has to remain unbroken for any of this to work out. 24,694 is where that number is at.
The stocks that I'm focusing on, one is Bandhan Bank. There's an update that's come in there.
Flat actually for all practical purposes. 24,984, flipping into the green.
Structurally, we will see higher inflation because of printing, but that will lead to higher asset prices.
The Nifty and I think the mid-cap index are along the flat line. Watch for the banks.
We have started to bring some true innovation on the market, like the soft cheese.
Noel Tata is likely to be the successor, and Melly Mistry is likely to be appointed a permanent trustee.
The aircraft landed today successfully at one of the 2 runways of the Navi Mumbai International Airport.
Noel Tata has been appointed as the chairman of the Tata Trust.
Sharpest strategies, top market trends, unmatched perspectives. The trading day's most comprehensive roundup. Stay ahead with NSE Closing Bell. Broadcasting live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios in Mumbai.
Well, it's a quiet day. The market is down about 50 points. This is closing bell, and what you saw through was, of course, a run-through of the day so far. We're coming to you from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios, and this is the last sort of hour of trade for the week coming up. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Reema and Surabhi. Nigel is joining us from the newsroom floor. Guys, hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, folks. Finally, we are at the last hour of what's been another really busy week. Not maybe so much in terms of price action, but definitely in terms of news flow.
Nigel is seeming a little subdued today. Nigel, it's Friday.
I think we'll hear him louder after 3:30.
Nigel's schedule is, it starts at 5:30, 6:30 and then 7:30. I won't say what.
Nigel's an early evening boy, you know, but yeah, it's been an interesting week. So let's hope, you know, we end somewhere around here and don't see any kind of big sell-off.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think the only sector which is doing well is metals, right? I mean, I think that's up about 0.75%. And maybe that is, again, you know, you're kind of joining, you're basically trying to see if China will announce something which may sort of cause a pop or a sustained move higher. Of course, that meeting is tomorrow out of China. Last one was a big disappointment, remember. And tomorrow is the Ministry of Finance meeting, there's a briefing, etc. So will there be a number? A number is important because if there's no number, if there's no big headline number, I mean, then, you know, people are likely to say, well, it's not really gone anywhere. And so will there be a big headline number? That is the question. We'll talk more about this in a bit from now. Otherwise, I mean, I think it is generally quiet. We're also going into the weekend, right? Because the 2 days of holiday. And as always, we've been sort of, at least for the last fortnight or so, markets have been waiting for this thing in Middle East to resolve itself one way or the other. So that uncertainty pushed oil prices as we head into the weekend about 4% last night. And I think it's holding on to gains so far. Reema.
Well, China closed down today. So I'm not sure in terms of expectation how exuberant and excited the street is. But the Shanghai index was down close to about, I think, 2.5% by the close of trade. For us, on a week-to-date basis, the Nifty is down about 0.25%, but the mid-cap index is up nearly 1%. TCS started trade with a cut of about 0.5 to 1%, but by the close of trade, it's extended its fall to more than a 2% cut. So, you know, that fall came through after the opening tick. Between about 11 and 12, we've seen TCS slip close to about 2%. But on the other hand, HCL Tech, which reports numbers on Monday, is higher by nearly 1.7%, and Infosys too came in for some amount of buying interest. Reliance Industries was showing promise in the session, but now their rally has faded a bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, global markets are not doing too much. Very, very quiet. Even in terms of European market action, there's a little bit of red, little bit of green. So it's frankly quite directionless. I was just looking at Tesla shares, by the way, for the reason that it made all the kind of headlines, right, with this robo-taxi announcement. Guys, I wonder how robo-taxis will figure and feature on Mumbai roads. I'm not sure. I take the taxi or try and take the Uber here. But I'm not sure if a driverless cab will manage to navigate Lower Parel. What do you think?
All the infrastructure being built, right? Bridges everywhere. So
Then maybe. Then the coastal road maybe. It'll figure on the coastal road. Okay, anyway, back to the market. That was a digression. But on the mid-cap screen, I mean, there is a little bit of green. That's the only index that's holding out slight positive at this point in time. Very, very different sort of set of stocks moving around, and we'll talk about some of them. So the ones in focus include obviously Bandhan Bank on the news flow, on the change of guard. Then there is Newland Laboratories. It's got some positive brokerage commentary around it today. It's working really well for the stock. Nippon Life has suddenly taken off about 8% up. So when it comes to individual stock action, there's plenty to keep us excited. But otherwise, very, very range-bound session for the headline indices today. Nigel.
Well, that's right. I think the best news today is that the mid-cap index is in the green. So your portfolios will be feeling very, very good. Well, let's find out how you trade the final hour of trade. For the time being, we're down close to around 40 points. Mitesh Thakkar is back with us. Mitesh, you were sounding a little bit cautious in the morning, and it appears that cautious view is playing out pretty okay right now. I think you had mentioned this morning that only once we get 25,400 would you believe that it's the real thing. Any change in stance? The Nifty Bank you called out as well. You didn't believe in yesterday's bounce. It's down 400 points.
Yes, Nigel, I think the structure is on the weaker side, which means that most of the moving averages on the hourly, 2-hourly charts, the indicators are still pointing downwards. Though the good thing is that because of that bounce back which happened 2 days back, 3 days back, and it was against the decline, I think the volatility indicators are subsiding a bit. So I believe it could be a slightly, choppy but sideways kind of an action with mild downside bias. So on the Nifty, it will be 24,700 to about 25,250, and in the best case scenario, 25,400. And on the Bank Nifty, I think the key support is around 50,700, 650 zone, and on the upside is 51,700, and in the best case scenario, 52,400. So broadly, it's a market which will be going through some volatile times. In case the support levels hold, then I think, after some base building and choppiness, we might see a reversal on the upside. The only worry in this entire scenario would be if the support levels don't hold, and then I think, we might prepare for further downside, but that is something which we might know in the next week sometime. So for trading with stock specific bias, I have a buy on PEL, Pyramid Enterprises. Keep a stop at about 1,050 for targets of 1125. And that apart, I think, the IT names are looking good. What I call finance is a buy with a stop at 11,300 for targets of 12,100.
All right, Mitesh, thanks very much for that. So we'll come back to you with more. Actually, Mitesh, if you could stay with us for a bit longer, I want to get your thoughts on metals. But let me just put the context for our viewers, right? Now, there is this much anticipated, everyone is covering it, that tomorrow the Ministry of Finance in China is having a meeting, and then there is a press conference. Now, the context is this, that markets got very bearish, and I think Chinese authorities are aware, if you sort of read articles coming out of there, that markets got too bearish post the NDRC press conference. This is the last one which was supposed to throw up this stimulus after China came out of the Golden Week holiday. But nothing came, really. The big question for markets is if the policy pivot is still on track post that pressure, or is actually fizzled out. And I think in that context, we get the answer tomorrow, and this becomes important. Now, there is also a little bit of nuance here. While markets got very excited because of NDRC, because of, before that there was the Politburo. So there was too much emphasis on that NDRC meeting. But NDRC in China largely looks at investment projects and partly involved in fiscal deployment as well. It is the PBOC, the Central Bank, People's Bank of China, and the Ministry of Finance, which is largely responsible for what they call cyclical policy adjustment, responding to, the ups and downs in the economy. Now, one other thing before I get to the actual expectation, the finance minister, the Chinese finance minister himself will address and take questions as far as the press conference is concerned. So what to expect? So here are a couple of things. Revisions to official fiscal deficit requires a NPC approval, which is National People's Congress, which is another important body, which will meet only late October. So the Ministry of Finance as far as we can tell, will not be able to pre-approve a large budget spend ahead of this NPC meeting, which is only sometime in late October or early November. That is the next National People's Congress meeting. The possibility is, and this is essentially now the actual expectation, the possibility is that the Ministry of Finance may give markets an implicit heads up about an upcoming fiscal stimulus plan. They may actually indicate towards a fiscal plan quite strongly, especially this may come up, a directional sense of this fiscal spend may come up during the press conference, which is where they're expected to take questions, etc. as well. Remember, after the NDRC meeting as well, there were questions taken. There was a press conference. A specific question was put to the authorities at that point by the Reuters journalists about a fiscal plan, and they did not really commit to it. So expect a repeat in terms of questions at least. And the hope is, the expectation is that we will not get a big headline number because they can't do it without the NPC approval. But they may actually strongly indicate towards it, especially because I guess the authorities in China also don't want to sort of let go of this momentum that they are seeing, at least, which has developed over the last fortnight or so. So this is, is broadly the expectations. Don't expect a big number tomorrow, which is essentially what gets everyone very excited, because one can fixate on that and say, well, this is this percentage of the annual budget in China, and this is what it will do to growth, etc. But expect an indication that they are committed. I mean, there's a possibility they may not do it, but an indication at best, and maybe a strong indication if we are lucky, especially the metal stocks here today. Mitesh is, I think, still with us. Mitesh, thanks for waiting. Just your thoughts on commodities, metals, mining stocks. What's your sense? That sector is up today.
In fact, we have been positive here and we have seen good rally, but the one which looks stronger to me are the non-ferrous, the aluminum stocks like Nalco and Hindalco. While Tata Steel and SAIL also, look promising, but just looking at the overall setup, the position of the indicators, I think Nalco and Hindalco might do well. So on a national aluminum, for example, my sense is that it's heading towards the highest ever level which the stock has done is about 227.4, and we are just about 2% below than that. And the daily and the weekly charts are clearly showing signs of expansion. Good chance that Nalco might head towards 250 plus levels. Similarly, Hindalco also, if I was to look at it, the highest level the stock has done is about 772. And now at 747, and the structure is positive. So I think it should retest those highs and maybe even clear them.
Okay, that's the call on some of these metal names. Prakash Diwan is now joining in on the show. Prakash, afternoon. We spoke yesterday post the TCS's numbers, and there were a few green shoots. The recovery in hiring, the recovery in BFSI, etc. But the stock has taken a bit of a hit. Do you expect the next 3 months TCS to be sluggish? Is it time to look at the other IT names? Or if someone has IT exposure, it's time to, pair some of those bets, because you don't know what's going to come out, right? There could be another disappointment like TCS, and you've made some money in IT names.
So, Rima, good afternoon. So, I do agree. The numbers were short of expectations, particularly the margins, primarily because they came mostly from India. And the India BSL business is known to be, long-term revenue growth, but not too much on margin accretion. But what's probably not been accepted by the market very well, though initially it seemed that the North American BFSI uptick, as you rightly pointed out even yesterday, was some sort of a green shoot which could make people believe things will look up. But as of now, we really don't know what is the behavior that you can build in from a longer-term perspective on the order wins. The Fed rate cut has been kind of come and gone, but we've really not seen corporate America look at anything which changes the trajectory or the pace of change. And that's primarily because you have a big event in the form of the November US elections. Once that's out of the way, you probably have clarity. So if you really ask me, most IT names, barring an Nifty or something which probably has different levers to work around, you'll probably find IT go sideways now. And till there's some sort of a uptick in order booking, which is where things will start looking up differently for most companies. And it depends on which verticals start contributing. Is it BFSI that leads the pack? And is digitization going to make a comeback, or is it more AI support? So a lot remains unanswered, and that's precisely why I think people are taking some money off the table when it comes to TCS, and that could happen in some of the other bigger names as well.
Okay, that's IT for you. By the way, let's pull up Newland once again. I mean, Newland has been an absolute stunner today. The stock's up almost, I think, 13 to 14% last we checked. What Ekta tells us that there is some sort of expectation out there, and the analyst commentary that's doing the round is talking about perhaps better exports in the months to come of couple of the APIs that they're involved in, and maybe that could be driving up sales. Exports of 27 million, which is going to be a 12 times increase month on month. I mean, this is all sort of buzz and chatter that's doing the rounds in terms of the analyst fraternity that tracks this company. And maybe those high expectations are getting priced in as we speak. Let's see if the company can deliver or not. But Prakash, let me take a chance. Newland, have you looked at the company of late?
So it's been making some very positive noises for the last couple of months, though. And if you look at the last 12 months trajectory for this stock, should be very clearly, it's a stock that the market has certainly found love for. It's done so well, given the fact that it was valued for not having seen any growth in the previous 12 months, and then this year it's kind of made a comeback, which is phenomenal. So it's all about timing in terms of the output of the business. This could happen to a lot of companies that have been investing in energies and resources into the research side. And when these molecules start actually reaching commercial stage, or when some of the products get into the monetization phase, which is the case in Newland, then you have this opportunity. Now, will this opportunity continue? The answer probably is yes, not at the same pace at what we've seen last 12 months. But I would implore people to look at some other businesses that are in a similar set, in that sense, in a similar stage of evolution. And there are a lot of these businesses which are doing a lot of work on CAR T cells with the cancer oncology side. Some of them on the Ozempic side. We spoke about that yesterday. You look at a NATCO again. Why I keep bringing it back is from a valuation perspective, the risk reward is so favorable. Things that are working out for them will start kind of paying off so brilliantly. It's just a matter of time when that happens. From here, you have that delta being created in terms of earnings potential, which Newland has done. Even some of the older businesses, well discovered, like TVs, for instance. Why are they moving so strongly? Because everything which used to be a tailwind is kind of leading to some sort of solution being found on each of those counts, and the headwinds are getting to be so strong and favorable. So pharma, you will see very specific stock-specific activity, company-specific activity. And from that perspective, if you time yourself right in terms of getting into a story, I think it pays off well. Newland, yes, there is some more legs to this rally, but yes, the better part of it is behind us. We could probably look at some of the other names, Orchid, NATCO, which are kind of getting there in terms of opportunities.
Okay, Just Dial reported numbers, a while back, and the company's revenue growth has slowed down to single digits. So in the current quarter, revenue growth stands at 9.3%, which compares with about a 13.5% growth in the June quarter, more than 16% in the March quarter, nearly 20% in the December quarter, and prior to that, we were looking at a growth between 25 to 30%. So that post-COVID boom, there was a recovery in the growth rates, and once again, it started moderating. And in the current quarter, revenue growth is 1.5% quarter on quarter, and on a year-on-year basis, 9.3%. Margin defense, though, has been quite solid, and the company's margins sequentially have been maintained at 28.8%. Profits have gone up by nearly 9%. Remember, the company is sitting on a fair amount of cash. The cash on the company's book stands at close to 4,942 crores, so it constitutes a large part of the company's overall market capitalization. Just Dial's Q2 numbers. But let's get to some of the big movers of the day. Bandhan Bank is surging on the back of the appointment of its new MD and CEO. Abhishek now joins in with the details. Abhishek.
Well, RBI has approved Mr. Partha Sengupta as the MD and CEO of Bandhan Bank for a period of 3 years, and he should join the bank before 10th of November 2024. So Bandhan Bank has also received claims that they have raised to NCGTU, which is about the claims under CGFMU Credit Guarantee Fund for Micro Units, as well as ECLGS, which is Extended Credit Links Government Subsidy. So in total, Bandhan Bank had received about 1,460 crores from the claim of about 2,213 crores. So about 66% of the claims is what in totality they have received. Now we have brokerages who have written on Bandhan Bank. CLSA says they have an outperformance rating with a target price of 240 per share. They say that key overhangs are gone. That is with respect to management change, as well as the CGFMU audit being completed and announced. So with these two key overhangs now behind, focus will be back on fundamentals. In the near term, credit quality of MFI portfolio along with the sector that you are seeing can deteriorate. However, they believe that this is already in the estimates of analysts as well as in the price. Jefferies has also written on Bandhan Bank. They have a buy rating with a target price of 240 per share. They say that RBI appointed Partha Sengupta as the MD and CEO for 3 years. This should be taken positive as he was earlier Deputy MD at SBI as well as MD and CEO at IOB, that is Indian Overseas Bank. So he has also worked in West Bengal, which is a key market for Bandhan Bank. So with past stresses clear and valuations being attractive at price to adjusted book value of 1.1x FY26, this stays a buy for them. Back to you.
Okay, all right, Abhishek. Thanks a lot for that. So that explains why Bandhan is doing well. But Abhishek, yesterday you were telling us that Credit Access Grameen's update wasn't that impressive, and now Nomura has raised various concerns. That's why I think they've come out with a note. Tell us more about that.
Well, MFI stress, we did highlight in May of 2024 that there is stress in the rural economy, which is now being seen amongst lenders as well. So we saw that in CredAC numbers yesterday, wherein the disbursements declined sharply on a sequential basis, and that led to weak AUM growth over there. So Nomura has come out with a note on Credit Access Grameen. They have downgraded it to reduce from neutral. They have cut the target price to about 950 per share. They say that state elections, including Maharashtra, Bihar, and Jharkhand are coming up. These three states form about 28% of the business for Credit Access Grameen. So steep decline in disbursements or AUM growth. Asset quality has also deteriorated in the business update that the company has given. So multiple headwinds ahead for MFI sector, and they believe that asset quality issues in the medium term will be driven by steep rise in PAR, that is portfolio at risk, across buckets, especially in early bucket, which is PAR 0, wherein it has increased to 4.9 versus 2.5% in the previous quarter, and that should lead to overall credit cost being not only high in Q2 FY25 but also in the near term as well. Due to rising NPAs, there will be interest reversals on the portfolio, which will impact the net interest margin of the lender. And along with that, fintechs have been partnering with NBFCs, especially in the small ticket size unsecured loans, anywhere between 35,000 to 40,000 kind of a ticket. That is at a very high interest rate and at the same to the same household, aggravating the problems at the lender's side. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot, Abhishek, for that. Well, let's hop across to Prakash Diwan. Prakash, you heard what Abhishek had to say. Bandhan Bank, finally that stock seems to have things going for it. You've got a new MD CEO at the helm, and also, in terms of a recovery, they've got 65% of what they asked for. Though the good news is that from here on, the provisions may not be very, very high. And the other one is Credit Access Grameen, which is weak, down 5% in 2 sessions. Your view on both these two counters?
Hi, Nigel. So, my view on MFI is extreme caution. I think there's much more that's not come to the fore in terms of bad quality of assets. And once that starts, it'll probably start unraveling, and you'll probably have some balance sheet which will really get very majorly impacted. I don't know which ones are those yet, but I'm talking more from a overall collections perspective, how things have been. You look at anything that gives you an indication of metrics related to rural demand, and it tells you that most of the demand has been very tepid for a fairly long time, and that's where the stress starts developing. So collections is going to be a big challenge for most MFIs, and Grameen Access very clearly demonstrates that. But on Bandhan, I'm very positive, Nigel, for the simple reason you have an MD, somebody in the top slot now with a lot of things, adding to that position. You have familiarity with the geography, you have familiarity with the segment. Having worked in a PSU bank of a large scale, there's an advantage to figure out how to grow. So, you have all of those things and then there's continuity. And this whole thing of the credit guarantee issue being, out of the way actually paves the way for Bandhan to start moving. And remember, from a valuation perspective, 4 years have passed since the COVID lows. I think it was, 152 or wherever it was at that point. It's hardly, moved 30% from there in all these 4 years. So it has a lot to catch up. The size of the book has grown. They've made some decent acquisitions on the fee-based franchise as well. The asset management business. So I think it's definitely a package worth looking at. Whether you want to wait for the demonstration of change to happen from the new leadership or whether you want to put the money before that, it's a call that you take. But I think from a risk reward, it's very, very promising at this point.
Okay. All right, Prakash, we'll leave it on that note then for today. Thank you very much for joining in. You have a good weekend and we look forward to connecting again very, very soon. Okay, that's Newsbreak confirms Sudan Chemical to acquire global pigments business. And that's a big amount as well, about almost 1,200 crores of the Hubach group. I think this is something that Vivek had alerted us on not too long ago, and that story has finally been confirmed. So we'll try and get Vivek back very quickly. Stock's reacting very, very well because this is a global company. And it's a large-size global manufacturer that I think Sudarshan is acquiring. And perhaps the valuation is something the street is quite okay with, looking at the stock reaction.
From what I remember, and we'll have Vivek join us, basically this company got into trouble. The global group got into trouble, and I think they were filed for bankruptcy, etc. And in the pigments business, I mean, I remember when even before the story, there was speculation whether this is going to be beneficial for Sudarshan. Because that company going out of business is a large player in the pigment space, but of course then we reported that they're trying to acquire, and I think it's finally happened. So as you said, CNBC-TV18 Newsbreak confirms stocks are sharply rising about 3% or so, and we'll have Vivek join us back on this to refresh our memories and what this may mean. Vaibhav Sanghvi from ASK is going to be joining us on the other side. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Well, look at the bottom of your screen. Actually, you have Concord's numbers that have come in there. And for the first half of the year, actually, they're trailing what they've guided for. So Concord in the first half of the year, well, the growth in the EXIM business is only around 3.5%. They were guiding for 15%. So that's a miss. They're lagging on that front. On the domestic business as well, the growth is close to around 14%, but they were guiding for 25%. And on an overall basis, they've just done 6% in the first half of the year. The tall expectation that they laid out was 18 to 20%. So they'll have to do something phenomenal in the second half of trade to actually go ahead and achieve these numbers. But for the time being, Concord is the one that actually is lagging in comparison to what they themselves have been guiding for, much lower than what they had guided for. So we'll see how that goes. But let's address the news piece on your screen. You heard it first. Now it's official. Sudan Chemicals all set to acquire a business overseas. Vivek joins us to fill us in with those details. Vivek, congratulations. You hit the nail on the head. Tell us more about it.
Well, Nigel, that's right. So earlier, we had informed you about how Sudan Chemicals, the Indian chemical player, was actually going to go ahead and look to acquire a larger listed entity as far as the European operations, or a global major as far as the pigment segment was concerned. And along expected lines, just some time ago, the news has hit the exchanges that Sudan Chemicals, the subsidiary of the company, will be acquiring the global pigment business operations of Huback Group of Germany. This particular acquisition has actually been done from the insolvency resolution. Remember, the Huback Group had actually filed for bankruptcy or insolvency, and the bid of Sudan was actually the best bid as per the insolvency, on the back of which they have received this particular, this particular portion of the business of the Huback Group. What is it that they are paying? The Huback Group overall total revenues was, FY21, FY22 was over 1 billion euros, but that is of the entire operations of the group. For only the pigment business of this particular entity, Sudan Chemicals is paying close to 127.5 million euros, which works out to 1,180 crore rupees. So it does appear to be quite an attractive, acquisition in terms of valuation. But again, we'll have to wait and watch by, in case the company does hold an analyst call to get further details on the kind of valuations that they've actually paid to acquire this particular asset. What is it that the company, the combined entity, will have? They will have a comprehensive pigment portfolio of high quality products and a strong presence and they will have presence both in Europe as well as Americas. Company says that there will be 19 sites globally through which they will actually be getting access. When you're talking about the Huback Group, 1 billion euros, like we mentioned, in FY21 and FY22, and they are present across Europe, Americas, as well as the Asia Pacific region. The main news is that, Sudan Chemicals actually goes ahead and increases capacity as well as presence quite significantly in the pigment business, and that, it'll be something very interesting to track going forward, how exactly they can go around and turn around this particular asset.
I mean, that is a rocketing Starship kind of move on the stock. 18% now. So just Vivek, what are annual revenues for Sudarshan right now, and the pigment business, what are the revenues annual?
Sudarshan business, the annual revenue, FY24 was close to 2,540 crore, and they did a PAT of a little over 350 crore. Huback Colorants India, that will be the other stock in focus that we need to keep an eye out for. That is a listed entity within India, the owner of whom is actually the Huback Group, the global listed entity. So over there too, there could be some changes as far as the ownership is concerned, and there could be an open offer too that gets triggered over there. Huback Colorants is the one that we're talking about. Talking about the exact breakup of, Sudan Chemicals, the colorants business, I don't have it exactly. We'll just look for that particular one. Huback Colorants India, they had annual revenues FY24 of 791 crore, profitability of around 40 crore. So again, it's a significant development. We'll wait and see, what the company says in terms of the analyst takeaways. What is the kind of acquisition what is the kind of valuation that they've paid for this particular acquisition?
And this colorants company is the pigments business, but they're acquiring the entire pigments business of the Huback Group, right?
That's right.
Not just
the
this.
Global pigment business of Huback Colorants.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And Vivek, sorry, just to come back to the point on total. I think you said 1 billion euro is the total revenue of the Huback Group. And what is the size of the pigments business, which is what Sudarshan is acquiring?
Well, that is the gray area, and that's what we need to find out for, because $127 million, close to 1,000 crore, they are paying, for the business, but the breakup is not given as far as the Huback Colorants business is concerned. But we do understand that, it's the majority portion as far as Huback Colorants is concerned. The total global revenues, which is what, again, we had highlighted earlier, the total global operations, FY21, FY22, had turnover in excess of 1 billion euros. So we'll wait and watch by, in case there are more details that do come in, or if, in case there's an analyst meet, etc., that is held, so that we get more details on that front.
20% now, by the way, on the stock. So, Sudarshan, I remember there were some notes, etc. as well. Did we have an estimate of what they could likely pay? They're paying just under 1,200 crores. So, is this in line with what was put out, or was there a number in the first place?
Well, there wasn't a number because it was a closed bid. We understand that they had given to the insolvency, resolutions. But we do understand, given the fact that there aren't too many players in this particular space, we understand that the competition was limited. And we also understand that there were very few bids that had received. And Sudarshan had emerged as the highest bidder. And, the bid was quite aggressive compared to, the other bids that Huback, the insolvency resolution professional of Huback had received.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so Vivek, it would be lovely to get a sort of, that's great information. We'll try and get an analyst as well to sort of talk to us about this, but that's the story. Volumes have also exploded. I mean, so the move has come on the back of sharp volumes. It's limit up on Sudarshan Chemicals. That's a very large one coming through. 15 lakh shares now, almost on that one. And of course, 10 lakh shares on Huback Colorants, the India subsidiary. Weber Sangvi is with us, CEO at Ask Hedge Solutions. Weber, good to have you with us here. I know you don't. We don't talk stocks, but Sudarshan Chemicals, it's not a stock we talk about every day, but they're a leader in the pigments business. Have you looked at this at all ever, or any thoughts, if you have any?
No, unfortunately, Prashant, I think we don't track it closely on this name, so I will pass on in terms of the comments.
Okay, let's talk about metals then as a sector. So markets are fixating on this meeting tomorrow in China. Do you think anything will come out of it? And there's money to be made here next week.
Yeah, of course. I think what we've seen, Prashant, from a sentiment perspective is on the earlier kind of stimulus leg, we've seen some sizable rally from a metal pack. Partly kind of factoring in that the momentum on this sector will kind of continue. And of course, the street is looking forward to the event over the weekend. While in my experience, we've always seen that when there is when people are looking on a particular event in a very eagerly manner, then large part of that discounting, is generally done ahead of that event. So in this case, while we will wait for what actually comes out of that meeting, but my sense is basically the structural parameters in terms of the Chinese economy at this point in time aren't changing, much. We will have to wait whether the real estate sector kind of recovers. And one thing which is unlikely to kind of recover at all is basically the demographic profile, of China, which in my view is slowly and steadily going towards the Japan way, over a longer period of time, which I do feel that on a structural basis can kind of see growth, which can be pretty subdued.
Okay, all right. Got that. Vaibhav, hi, good afternoon. Good to have you on. So that's metals. Let's talk about IT as well. That's the other side of the market that's gotten a fair amount of attention and money, right, in the last couple of weeks and months, as there's been a bit of a churn across portfolios. The season has just started, and maybe TCS was a bit of an outlier. But what's your stance? Have you been allocating more money here? What do you like? What are you staying away from?
See, Subi, I think in all our previous interactions also, right, in the last 2 quarters, we've always maintained that, IT is a sector which was kind of getting bottomed out, where incrementally we had seen commentary kind of changing. At the same time, we are seeing some amount of green shoots, from BFSI, while the generative AI, not posing an incremental threat. In fact, it was going to give you opportunities from a revenue accretion as well. Now, having said that, what we've seen in the last 2 quarters is basically the price is actually rallying by about 15 to 20% easily. At the end of it, it's kind of outperformed the Nifty as well. which is we are at a point where the expenses, the valuations are slightly rich, but also on the consideration that for the first 2 quarters of a financial year, you always see generally that the results are pretty good, and the subsequent 2 quarters are generally weak because then would be the season of furloughs as well. So we are at a point where we've already rallied. The commentary on the underlying business is unlikely to change in a big way. It is where we are turning, where we were very, very bullish on that sector to kind of neutralish, at this point in time. So we will have a stock-specific opportunity out there, but from an overall sectoral basis, we are not, very, very excited.
Hi, Vaibhav. Good afternoon, and good to see you win. What about the telecom space? Everyone thought in the middle that Vodafone Idea is going to be the big unlocker. Well, the stock is half from the recent peak. Bharti Airtel, though, that's still holding steady. While the other play we have is Reliance Industries has been under some pressure. Among the three, how do you play the telecom theme?
See, and Nigel, I think from a telecom perspective, the government vision is very clear that they don't want to play a market in that sense, right? So we'll continue to see, 3-player market or more from a telecom perspective. While that competition is kind of healthy, what we also need to understand from a larger opportunity perspective is that from business standpoint, I think there is a tremendous amount of opportunity going forward. Of course, these valuation bits and pieces will start to look expensive in between, but I think from a longer term perspective, at any decline, I think this is a sector where to look at. And I would rather prefer to go in for a pure play telecom rather than a conglomerate in that sense. So that is how our preference, would be, while the sector view on overall long-term perspective remains bullish.
What about banks? What have you made so far of the kind of banking updates that we've got? There is also a lot of management churn taking place. How would you position yourself in the financial space and even in the non-lenders like wealth management, asset management? Give us the entire landscape on financials.
I mean, financial services, while very, very broad, I think we are, we are looking in, very, very optimistically on the financial services, which you mentioned about wealth managers, asset managers, and likes of those. We do think that they are in a structural bull run for a longer period of time as we see our demographic profile kind of play out in terms of their business tailwinds. Having said that, from a banking sector perspective, which actually garners the larger weightage in terms of the Nifty, we do think that from a profitability perspective, we may see kind of downgrade in terms of our estimates, both from a public and a private sector perspective. Having said that, our preference towards private sector would be there, purely because if you see from last 3-year perspective, on an average, good private banks, which were trading close to about 3 times price to book multiples, are now sub 2. Whereas PSU banks have rallied from about 0.5, 0.6 times to from 1 to 1.1 time kind of price to book. So the valuation between them is compressed. And incrementally, when we see there is some amount of asset quality pressure coming out from personal loan segment, MFI segment, my sense is basically that, private banks is a segment we would want to look at. Having said that, we still do feel that on a banking perspective, as a sector's perspective, we would be neutralish. So there is play within the sector in a bank side, but financial services is something which we are bullish from a structural standpoint.
Thanks, Vaibhav, for joining in and giving us your take on the markets as well as individual stocks. Wishing you a good evening, and we look forward to chatting up with you in a couple of weeks or so. By the way, Prashant, just one point I wanted to make on Nalco. The reason that the stock is up close to around 5% is because the only play in the alumina vertical. You have aluminium plays, whether you're looking at Hindalco or even Vedanta. But as we had the management, Mr. Patra, who spoke to us a couple of sessions ago, he said that alumina prices are at $600 per ton. And aluminium prices are roughly around $2,500 per ton. Normally, the ratio is around 16-17%, the alumina to aluminium prices. But right now, it's around 23 to 24%, and they believe it will sustain. So because of the big move we are seeing on alumina, in the near term, we could see that Nalco could outperform some of its peers because the way alumina prices have moved up, there's a deficit globally, which is supporting prices. That's why it's at around 22 to around 24% as a percentage of aluminium. That's about Nalco, explains why the stock is moving up. But Nimesh is with us. Nimesh, Friday afternoon, almost done with the week. What are you picking up in D-Street chatter?
Well, being a Friday, no complaints because the broader markets have done well.
Yeah.
So in a way, the portfolio should have been better for today. But from a flow perspective, the one feedback is at least the intensity of selling has lowered down clearly. And that's showing up in the numbers as well, right? What we saw last week, an average of 10,000 crores of selling, that has now come down to almost 4,000 crores and getting equally matched by the DIs. Look at the kind of SIP number we saw yesterday as well. So that momentum is clearly there from a domestic flow perspective, even from these levels. I guess from a sector point of view, pharma stood out today. Actually, it got oversold yesterday on the back of that US news, and there were confirmations that it's not a big impact for the Indian companies, hence we have seen a bit of a pullback there. And even technology has been relatively outperforming. And within technology, the feedback is, if you look at the TCS numbers, what stood out for a lot of analysts was the fact that the BFSI vertical did well, right? And in that sense, the persistence, the L&T, Mindtrees and emphasis, they are the ones who should do well. And that's the reason why you're seeing a bit of outperformance on those names today. But I guess from a market point of view, the big event to watch will be the China meeting over the weekend, and that stimulus announcement is going to be quite significant. The way I read is, if it's a very large stimulus, positive for metals, but negative overall from a flow perspective for India. But if the stimulus is quite small, then you'll see a bit of sell-off in the metal names, but the flow will move back to India. So that's the way one should approach markets on Monday. But clearly, that's a big trigger to watch out for. But from a flow perspective, as I said, the intensity has clearly been lowered in the last couple of days, matched by DI buying.
All right, so we'll wait by over the weekend. All eyes will be on China, but individual stocks, what are you picking up?
Also, in terms of individual names, the first stock is Electra Greentech. After a long time, some bit of interest is back in that particular name. The stock is buzzing in trade. The volumes are on the higher side. I understand some HNI investors are quite active buyers as well. And also, the street is anticipating some new order wins for the company very soon. But, for Electra Greentech, apart from order win, I think the execution, which is expected from the third quarter, that's going to be a big trigger for the stock from here on. So that's the first stock. The second name is Gujarat Ambuja Exports. Been flat for the last many months now. I understand one of the leading PMS was an active seller in the last couple of weeks. That's largely getting over now, and some domestic mutual funds have bought as well in the last few days. So that's Gujarat Ambuja Exports. The third name is DLF. The mid-cap real estate have done well today, but DLF is on the negative side, largely in back of sell flows. So expect high delivery volumes, and on the sell side from larger FIs in DLF. And the last is Crompton Consumer. The stock is under pressure today, but again, I understand the flows are quite strong. There is buying interest from some long-only funds in Crompton Consumers, and expect high delivery volumes on the buy side in today's market today.
Okay, Nimesh, thank you very much for that. We'll get into a break. We'll come back and get you a few BTST calls. Last day of the week, so we'll prep you up for the last 15 minutes.
welcome back. So looking at about a 30-point cut on the Nifty as we are winding down with the mid-cap index still retaining some green. Mitesh is with us. Mitesh, so before we say goodbye for the weekend, final thoughts on the week, the day, and of course the final ideas as well.
Yeah, so I think, a couple of names come on the track. RVL Bank along with Bandhan is, I think, seeing good traction. So BTST can be attempted with a very tight stop at 202.5. And look for a target of 208, 209 for Monday. And the bigger one, the larger bank, State Bank of India, is also trying to recover. That's a BTST with a stop at 794 for targets of 810.
Much for that. Trend is likely going to be the top Nifty gainer for the day with a 2.5% rally after Noel Tata was appointed as the chairman of Tata Trust. Remember, he's the chairman of Trent. So Trent, in fact, is, I think, the best performing stock for the week also with a 12% gain. And plus, there was that entry into lab-grown diamonds, beauty, personal care. So lots of news flow for Trent this week. But talking about the September life insurance data, now that's shown a 14% increase in premiums. Yash joins in to give us a lowdown on that data. Yash.
Rima, it's been a strong month for life insurance companies, that is the month of September. And with closing September on a high note, the life insurance companies have ended Q2 also on a very strong note. If I speak about the industry in the month of September has grown its premium by about 14%. For the first half, that means the industry has grown at a premium growth of about 19%. Private life insurance companies have played an equally strong role. September premium growing at 16%, first half growing at 12%, September total annualized premium equivalent or APE growing at 27%, retail APE growing at 28%. Now let's speak about the individual listed companies. HDFC Life for the month of September, it was a strong growth, but over a modest base which it had. So the total premium that grew at 9%. First half premium has grown at 12%. Total APE in the month of September has grown at 23%. Retail APE growing at 25%. ICICI Prudential Life Insurance, it's a strong growth, but one needs to be mindful of the fact that it had a favorable base. So total premium growing at 21%, first half premium growing at 17%, total annualized premium equivalent growing at 34%, retail APE that has seen a growth of 33%. Max Life Insurance, that's been a very strong growth story over the last few months. It has seen a strong growth in the month of September over a strong base which it was facing. Total premium growing at 29%, first half premium growing at 19%, total APE seeing a growth of 38%, retail APE also seeing a growth of 38%. SBI Life Insurance had a strong base to grow on, hence the growth has become weak in the last few months. Total premium growing at just about 5%, first half premium seeing a contraction of 3%, total AP is flat for the month of September, retail AP has grown by 9%. LIC, it's a strong growth in the month of September for LIC, but over a weak base or over a favorable base. Total premium has grown at 12%, first half premium growing at 25%, total AP has grown at 19%, and importantly, retail AP for LIC in the month of September has grown at 48%.
Okay, all right. Yash, thanks very much for that. We will take a break on that note, come back on the other side with some final ideas for the market.
Welcome back. Gurmeet Chadha, Managing Partner, CIO at Complete Circle, is now with us on the show. Gurmeet, wanted to get your quick thoughts on Sudarshan Chemicals. Made a big acquisition, spending more than 1,000 crore rupees to acquire a global company. Stock has skyrocketed 15%.
Yeah, the market impressed with the capital allocation they have done, and it's one of the few chemical companies which have actually not done that badly in the bad cycle. There is also others. So, for example, SRF has done big capex in the last 2 years. Deepak Nitrite, for example, has done a lot of backward integration. So maybe in a quarter from now, if China's stimulus comes through, inventory restocking has happened, this could be some bit of a counter-cyclical trade.
By the way, Hubac Colorant, the other stock that Vivek was telling us, had moved up 7%, but now is down nearly 5%. So there's been a sudden sharp downturn in Hubac Colorant. That stock will also come up for you on your screen. So Bandhan Bank in one day has suddenly re-rated close to about 11-12% post the appointment. Is there more juice left in Bandhan Bank?
I think a big overhang gone. I think that's why market was rejoicing. And we saw that with Federal Bank when Mr. Manian was appointed. It moved up from 150, 60 levels to 180, 190. Leadership makes a big difference. We've seen that with ICICI Bank. We are positioned on Federal Bank, RBL Bank, and some of the PSU banks. PSU banks in particular, Bank of Baroda, very good quarterly update. Advances grew almost 20% YOY, 6% quarter on quarter. Deposits grew almost 5% quarter on quarter. And the mix has improved. Plus, there will be a lot of treasury gains, with 10-year yield dropping 20-30 basis points this quarter, and trades at about 0.8 book. So selectively getting positioned in some select PSU banks as well.
Look at BSC, there's the other name. Just a quick word though on Sudarshan, as you were talking about earlier. I noticed that Sudarshan has added about 1,400, at 20% higher, it added about 1,400 crores in market cap. And they're paying 1,200 crores for the acquisition, right?
And their market cap now is 8,000 crore rupees after adding on 1,400 crore.
Yeah. But the circuit is broken. It was up 20, now it's up 14-15% or so. So on your screen. Gurmeet, any thoughts on BSC? It's a big move. It was tentative at the beginning when we started, but it's gone 4,500 plus now.
I mean, gravity-defying move. I think both BSC and Telecom, for example, I think we probably missed out. We booked our gains a little earlier, but it's got to do with the weekly contracts. NSE actually had 4 weekly expiries. BSC had 2. So it's a bit of a relative trade happening there. And so continue to be constructive there. We are building on CDSL, CAMS, a couple of broking names also if we get a little more dips. This story is very structural, Prashant. We are already at 24,500 on the SIP book as well. I think this is a buy it, fill it, shut it kind of a capital market play in general.
Gurmeet, we'll have to leave the conversation here. Thank you for joining in. Counting down to the close. Very, very flat on the Nifty and the Sensex. In fact, this whole week, Monday was a down day. Tuesday, we recovered all the Monday losses. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, markets have largely been sideways. And by the close of trade, I think for the week, the Nifty would have been on the flattish side. I think it's the mid-cap index which would have given you a return on a week-to-date basis. So week-to-date, the Nifty is indeed just down close to about 0.2%. The Nifty Bank came under pressure today, so that was down nearly 0.7%. Metal